Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mighty Switch Force 2. We're continuing to go through the game, so we're going to keep getting the hooligan scissors, and oh, great, now we have the switching directional blocks. I think that's new to this game compared to 1.
Yes. Yeah, because you couldn't shoot bullets through. You could shoot them through the green, like phase blocks, but this we combined lock blocks with the... I forget what they called them. Like the hose blocks. Where... I have to ask James what they're called now. But yeah, it was just sort of a pretty cool thing, because in the other stage you didn't even... you couldn't move them at all. They were just stationary. You know, so now they're tied in with the lock blocks, which I think is a really great mechanic.
Yeah, it's also natural too. Like, it's not something that okay, it's not something that doesn't make intuitive sense. You know, a double negative there. It's it makes intuitive sense that the block would work that way. You know what it does immediately,
right.
Which is also a really good thing as well.
It's just got such a nice game feel too, like the sound and just like. Because after shooting for a while and seeing how your water, it reacts to gravity, and just getting it to get like sucked into that tube and like shot out the way it does, it's very satisfying.
Yes, the game feel in this is also just really, really nice. I think that's something that almost every Way Forward game succeeds in as well. But it also probably seems like one of the hardest things to get right, because it's not something that's like quantifiable. Like, you can't say, oh, a game would feel better if X, because I feel like it's so vague. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, yeah, games are more than just the sum of their parts. You know, that's ultimately what it comes down to. That you have to find the kind of magic between the lines. Yeah.
Is that something you think kind of gets helped by playtesting a lot versus kind of just having that intuitive knowledge of having played a whole lot of games in the past?
Oh, definitely. I mean, you can. It's such a combination of all those things, because it's kind of like you can come into into making a game with a ton of knowledge of other games and how other games might have done things, but recognizing that while you're making it can be more difficult. So it's very easy to analyze after the fact why something works or doesn't work, right? But in my job, and one of the most difficult things is having the foresight to know what it's going to be like in the end, and game feel is one of the hardest things to nail down in that respect. So you have to just go off of assumptions based off of games you've played or games you've made. And playing a game and making a game are, two very different things. So it's not always a one-to-one. It's kind of like I had an instructor in college say, like, you can't just play games to be able to make games. It'd be like, going out for a band audition and being like, oh, I love drums. I listen to drums all the time, but I've never played.
It's like it's a little like filmmaking in that you can probably recognize good direction when you see it in action, but that doesn't mean you're a good director.
Right.
Same thing with writing too. Like, you can read a lot of books and know what is good writing, but that won't make you a good writer on its own.
Right. Yeah, it's practice makes perfect. But even when, so there are a lot of things I know, will help either create good game feel or give you kind of the opportunity to tune the game feel where you need it more easily. So if that makes sense, where it's like you're making decisions that are gonna like get you as close as you can to an end result will potentially work, and if it doesn't, you have a plan of attack for how it will make it easier to be able to accomplish it.
At what point, generally speaking, I know that this probably changes all the time in different projects, but at like what point does the game feel start to feel right? Because I can imagine like something like River City Girls, for example, like a lot of the game feel in a beat 'em up is like the specific sound effects that you get when you're punching something, or like the visual effects when you're when you're hitting someone, like a flash of light or something like that. But I also imagine that when you're making a game, that kind of stuff doesn't come in until at least a decent way into the gameplay progress, the game development progress. Like you don't, maybe you have placeholder sound effects or something like that.
Right.
Like,
yeah, I mean
so-
that's the case 100%. Like there are you try to get as close as you can with a lot of things, and sometimes you don't absolutely know until like the sound comes in or the VFX come in, and sometimes it feels really good already. Ideally, you can tell that it's feeling good on its own, right?
Okay.
And that when you then add all those other elements, it just feels way better, and you then it's serendipitous.
Okay.
But sometimes you do have to wait for those items to come in, and you have to be like, well, I'm pretty sure this is going to work. We had on Happy Feet 2, of all things, we had the whole mechanic for battling enemies was the game. Games generally run at 60 frames a second. On DS they all ran at 60, and that's like a hardware thing. And all the songs in the game were actually created by Ozomotley, so we got to work with Ozomotley on that game, which was really cool. They were like really nice guys, and they had all these cool ideas. They want to do like some kid songs, so they were like super excited to write these songs. They'd like play them for me, like, what do you think of this one? And it's like, this is fun. It's really cool. They're doing all these like sound-alikes. But one of the requirements I gave them was all the songs had to be 120 beats per minute, because that way, like every single song can be predictable to dance to the rhythm on a 60 frame per second game.
I never even thought about that.
Yeah, that was something that I did think about, I guess. So it's why I have the job I do, I guess. But yeah, it ended up making it. I was worried that it's like, oh, are the songs going to sound too like lame, and it ended up working great, and the songs all turned out pretty good. But the whole attack mechanism was a dance mechanic to the beat, and if you tapped to the beat, it worked really well. And as I'm talking to a beat, but if you tapped off rhythm, it wouldn't work as well. And that kind of mechanic, we kept having problems with it, and it didn't actually go in until probably like a month before we shipped the game. So that was like well, I'm pretty sure this is going to work. I'm pretty sure it's going to be good. And we kept having like various bugs in one way or another that it wasn't working, or some other elements, we were waiting on some other things. So it was that does happen sometimes. It's not ideal. It's definitely not ideal.
So what you're saying is Happy Feet is the inspiration for Crypto the Necrodancer.
Yes, Crypto the Necrodancer owes us a great deal of gratitude for doing an awesome dance game before they did. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm friendly with Brace Yourself Games. My our old technical director. He works there now. He's a big shot there, and they invited me on to their stream one time. We played Among Us before Christmas. It was really fun. So,
were you sus?
I was sus.
Okay.
It's funny. I was pretty good at it, and I watched a video after, and one of the people who works at Brace Yourself Games is like, man, Ivan just won't shut up. I'm like, oh. So he's like, I wanted to kill him first because he wouldn't shut up or something like that. And it's like, all right, yeah. It was.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I guess that begs the question then, because you can tell a lot about a person if they prefer to be imposter or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fun. I love being imposter.
Yeah, I love being imposter.
I
suck
never
at it,
get
but I love doing
imposter is the thing. Like almost every time I've played, I'm imposter either once for the entire night we're playing or none. So I'm just really bad at it whenever I do get it because I've never practiced. I don't have time to practice it.
Well, we're gonna have to play sometime because
I love that.
playing with people who aren't like little random kids on the internet, like throwing out racist tantrums is, it's more fun playing with humans.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's true for almost every video game.
What do you mean almost?
Like when like Resident Evil 3 Remake came out with its survival horror co-op mode, I was like, wow, this is an idea that sounds like it would be really great if I didn't have to play it with randos on the internet. And I have that reaction to like most every interesting multiplayer game I ever see anywhere.
Yeah. There's a reason why I'm glad Nintendo didn't put real voice chat into Splatoon 2. And I'll just... okay, I love when... I always laugh whenever you do that and you jump in the little passageway, because I know I do that too.
Yeah.
Just because it's like...
It's a way to keep your hands doing something while you're just walking to the left.
Right.
I mean, we take voice chat in our multiplayer games for granted kind of these days, but sometimes it can actually work better to not have it in your game. Like,
I would say in some cases, yes. In a team-based shooter, kind of, you play better if you have voice chat.
In
but-
something where it makes sense for you to have squad radio going on all the time, then sure, voice chat all the way. But if you were to play something older, Resident Evil Outbreak, for example, which is basically Resident Evil if it were cooperative multiplayer. There's not a whole lot of difference there. It works a lot better to not always know what your teammates are doing, because that uncertainty is itself a part of the experience in its way.
Oh, for a horror game especially, I can imagine that, because I think one of the questions of making a horror game and trying to have co-op in it would be how do you make this actually scary when you and your friend are I don't know, actually together, because I know
Talking about ordering a pizza.
I think there's a more recent multiplayer horror game that came out, which messes.
Phasmophobia, was it?
I think so. It messes around with the idea of your voice chat only being audible when you're within earshot of the other player.
That's Phasmophobia, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that game did that. That's really cool.
So it sort of has the best of both worlds there. But that glamorous-looking hooligan sister just has her head halfway up a block of mud. It's it's really distracting me.
It's okay.
Also,
you don't get to see the back of her sprite where it's just covered in mud.
Also, I screwed up, so I can't get the baby anymore.
Oh no.
I cleaned out too many mud blocks in this little section.
Oh no.
Yeah, you have to a lot of the time to get the baby, you have to clear out not usually the minimum amount of blocks, but you have to leave enough blocks in order to make a staircase or something like that.
That seems a little bit. I don't like puzzles that halfway require you to fail them once before you can solve them, unless there's an easy way to reset them in the same room. But that's just me.
Well,
It doesn't do it that often, but
it is an optional puzzle, and this is a later stage in the game, so.
Yeah, I suppose.
Because I generally feel the same way, where it's especially if this was, to be able to collect the sisters, that would be a no-go. That'd be a non-starter for me.
I mean, if it's telegraphed enough, I didn't really see it ahead of time well enough to judge. If it's telegraphed enough that you can reasonably be expected to think, oh yeah, okay, there's something there, I should probably be careful about which blocks I destroy.
There is definitely a conscious decision in this game to basically make it so that you're going back there.
I think he killed himself to try to see if it would work.
Oh, gotcha. There is a conscious decision in this game to be okay with not collecting the baby on the first time through, if that makes sense. Where it's okay to be able to, go through again and play it again. Because some of the other babies are the same way, where you see it and you're like, wait, what was that? Or how do I get there? I don't understand. And so
I was trying to see if I could fall down on top of the blocking, thus get a shot at the.
I do think there was a bug. So in the original, I think in the first Switch Force, the files for this, so the engine this was made in, Engine Black, we threw this game together really quick, and the actual level design files are just an indexed sprite image. There's the ping with index colors. And the index colors on particular blocks represent what each block is going to be, and they were the exact same size as the art. So in the original Switch Force, there was no ceilings unless I put a ceiling in there. And so when you jump up, or you run on the ceiling, or you run on the roof in stage 11, where you run backward and run on top of the screen a la DuckTales or Mario. There's just no collision up there. So for this stage,
Oh.
I think we actually made a ceiling up there, so you can't jump over it. Because the original puzzle, you could jump over what you were trying to do to get the bait.
Oh,
wow.
good grief! The first screen of this level, for some reason, feels like an Oddworld puzzle. I don't know.
Yeah, you gotta walk the guy.
Yeah,
It's got that
I
vibe.
mean, we're sort of using the guy that we're walking to rescue something else in this case, rather than trying to guide the stupid Midakin to safety. But it's
It
still
does
kind of
sort of have a kind of like Lemmings in that case.
Right.
Do you ever have to? I've never actually played real Lemmings. I've only played Mario vs. Donkey Kong, not the Game Boy Advance one, which is basically just Lemmings but Mario flavored. Do they ever have anything where you need to use a specific dude to save another specific type of dude?
in Oddworld.
Well, I've also never played Oddworld.
I realized Patty was taking her helmet off because she wanted to cool off or something.
Yeah.
But the timing of it right there, where she did it right after the stupid flaming coal person died, blew up. It looked like she was mourning it.
I mean, look at that thing; it's so cute.
Or maybe fake mourning it.
It's always fun to have them take their helmets off. In this particular game, I don't think anything beyond these fire guys. We don't really blend those things together.
That could be interesting. Kind of use them as a chain reaction sort of thing, where you save one guy to unlock another guy who you can then use to save another
Right.
guy, and it just kind of goes like that.
Yeah, that kind of thing. When you do it right, it can work really well. The hard thing is just doing it right and having it be clear and also fun. Sometimes it can feel tedious, like it's just complex for the sake of complexity. So you have to
Yeah,
work
making puzzles has to be one of the hardest things to do, and making complex puzzles especially, because you don't want a lot of puzzle games are very difficult, but I still enjoy them even if I am just sitting at my screen staring at it and not doing anything.
Right.
I'm just thinking about it, but that's also not the case for certain people. Some people want to feel like they're making some sort of progress. So
yeah, I mean, there's complex versus complicated, because you want something complex, but for just having it be complicated just because that's what you see as challenge can be a real downside. It's funny you talk about Oddworld. Oddworld Inhabitants was originally in San Luis Obispo, California, which is where I went to high school, and they had their office there, and they were in the news, and it was pretty neat. And I remember I applied for a job there, and I made a little demo reel to be an artist there, and I turned it in, and I showed my friends the demo reel after, and then I had this cool Star Wars themed thing I did, and then it said to be continued at the end, and they're like, oh no, it doesn't say continued, you misspelled it. And it said to be continued. So it was
Oh, jeez.
that was nice and embarrassing. So this is another thing where it's like if you the payoff is you get to the top, you're like, wait a minute, how do I get there? Obviously
Gotta
you're
go all
able
the
to
way
do
down.
it, but maybe you're able to do it, or you're able to try it at least.
Yeah.
But then also Lorne Lanning, who founded Oddworld, he used to come into the music store I worked at when I was working at Warehouse Music in 2000, 2001, and we would chat. And I told him oh yeah, I'm going to school for video games next year, and he was really supportive and really nice, and it was pretty cool. They eventually moved out of that area, but it was neat sort of chatting with Lorne Lanning and talking about games.
That's awesome. I would just the fact that you happen to work at a place where someone who made a game you respected shopped must be wild.
Yeah, it was really neat. That and the parents of one of the Crystal Method guys, they lived in town.
Huh.
So they came in to buy the new album, and I'm like, oh, you Crystal Method fans? They're like, oh, it's our son. He's, that's his wife on the cover or whatever. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. So they're really nice people.
That's always a bit wild when you get into that situation where just because, the number of famous people means they have, family or friends or what have you. So as long as you live in a decently populated area, you're kind of bound to run into like some tangential related thing at some point.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the whole 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon thing is supposed to be, right? Like,
That
chances
was just-
are you know someone
sort
who
of.
knows someone who knows Kevin Bacon.
Well,
or something like
I think it was 6 degrees of separation before Kevin Bacon got thrown into the loop. But back in the 80s, Kevin Bacon was in everything, so that was his connection
That's
back
kind of
then.
why. That's kind of why it became the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, because they were always 6 films away from starring with Kevin Bacon somewhere.
Yeah. It'd probably be a different actor these days, but I'm not sure who, but yeah, back
You
then.
could probably do like Chris Pratt or something now.
No, maybe, yeah.
Okay.
6
I've
degrees
never-
of Robert Downey Jr.
I mean, does being in the MCU count as cheating?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
It's kind of like playing 6 degrees of anything game related and counting Smash Brothers.
That's true.
It's kind of like counting the number of projects you do as a voice actor in an anime game before you voice act a project with someone from Persona 5.
Well, it especially helps since Atlas has like
Speaking of
4
which-
voice acters.
'Cause I think Xander Mobus is a voice in Persona 5, right?
Yes, he is
Yeah,
the main
he's
character.
the character.
He does cue ball in Marble Knights. So he plays the old guy in our game. And he was really awesome. He did a great job.
And Christina V is oh god, who's the tree
Shantae.
in Hyrule Warriors? Hestu. She does Hestu, so she's in a Zelda game, which means that Shantae is in Hyrule Warriors, which means Hyrule Warriors is a Shantae game.
Yeah, Christina Valenzuela also she did our voice. She did the voice direction for Marble Knights, which is really cool. She did all the casting. And
Oh, so she does voice direction as well as voicing the characters herself?
Yep.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So she's really great. So there wasn't a character that we ended up using with her for Marble Knights, but she was in charge of all the voice direction on it, which is really great.
So close.
And she goes by Christina Valenzuela these days.
Valenzuela, okay.
Yeah.
My
She dropped.
apologies.
No, it's all good. She dropped the V because she's just like that. Back when she started in the industry, it was a lot safer to go by that. Her initial. But now she's like, you know what? F it. I'm Christina Valenzuela. So
Okay, you see, since it was always written out as VEE, I just
Yeah.
thought that was actually her last name.
that was her working name. Yeah. So and she just like last year I think she said, you know what? I'm going back to my roots and embracing my real name. So
Awesome. How much like does she, when she's given a character like this for Patty, like how much does she input on like their personality or what their voice lines are, or is she more scripted?
it's I think most voice acting is pretty scripted, right? So I will say that the voice of Patty is Stephanie Comur. Oh my gosh, I don't remember how to pronounce her last name. I'm sorry, Stephanie. But she's rad. So she did Patty, and then she did a lot of the earlier Shantae stuff, and then we started working with Christina later on some other projects. Now sort of Christina is our go-to, and she sort of handles all that stuff. But for Marble Knights, for example, there's 10 main characters, and they all have voices, and so you basically you give them a shot of what something looks like. They send you demos, obviously, and then once they have that what's it called when you audition? Hey, that's the word. I'm not in my post-lunch slump. They have their audition, and then you basically take that and sometimes you have to play it back for them because they come into the studio months later. And they're like, "What's this for? What was this voice?" And you play it for them and go like, "Oh yeah, I remember this." And then sometimes they go a little off. They go a little off from it. You have to play the demo for them again so that they know what we're trying to go for sometimes. So. But then, if they have ideas, they'll try some things, and it can really, evolve from there. And so it's all over the place, really. It was really funny doing DuckTales, and the voice actors hadn't done the voices in so long that sometimes they had to be reminded of them and what the voices sound like.
I know Scrooge's voice actor was in his 90s when he did that game.
Yes, he was. He was 90. I think he was 94, and June Foray was 96. So, and she
was the voice of I forget the
Magica.
The witch.
The witch. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
Magica Dispel.
I am a fake DuckTales fan, and I've only seen the new one.
Oh, really? Okay.
Was that something you is that something you kind of had to kind of coach through with them a bit more compared to other voice actors, because they probably have less experience with games compared to, say, Christina or so?
No, all these voice actors, they all do games. They know what they're doing. I do know with Alan Young, one of the things that was in his contract was that he wasn't going to do like a ton of yelling and grunt work, because he was older and he didn't want to have to do. He did like 4 sessions. He did like the most sessions out of everybody. And it's funny, we went back and redid his original lines because he got in the flow after the 3rd day, so we redid a bunch of lines from the first day. But other than that, no, they usually they know what they're doing. They're amazing.
Wow,
that's great to hear.